Well, thank you, everybody. I'm assuming everybody enjoyed the film. You know, we're just going to have a little conversation up here, and then we've got a hefty line already, so we'll just start to... How early did you have to hop into line there to be the first person in line?
I was here about 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
Not really that long.
Not too bad. You didn't start like 2 minutes into the film, you just stood there the rest of the...
Right, yeah. I showed up about 10 minutes before the film. I'm standing here for the next 3 hours.
All right, great. Well, I guess one of the first things I wanted to... is your microphone working?
Is it? Oh.
Okay, good.
James is working.
The first thing I wanted to ask the two of you was, what does it feel like to be literally legitimate rock stars now, apparently? Because...
Next question.
Yes, next question. So one of the things that we talked about a little bit the other day, and I think a lot of people aren't maybe really familiar with, is obviously the name of your podcast, Instagram, and everything else is Team Deakins. Like, you guys are a team, and it takes a team to do everything that you do and put everything together. And can you just talk a little bit about what this great team is like that you've had for so many years here, and how you work so closely together to really achieve everything as a power couple?
Well, we just do everything together, don't we? Like, we're together, we do everything together.
I can see why it wouldn't work for some people, but we're okay being together 24/7. When we do a movie, we talk about it from the beginning to the very end. We're incredibly boring. We only talk about the film when we're working on it.
James is a sort of much more of a people person than I am, so we're kind of good together.
Roger would prefer not to be on stage at all and just enjoy the work that
I might be on stage. I was on stage shooting Chuck Berry once. That sort of thing's fine, but not like this.
Wait, Roger, you shot Chuck Berry once?
I did Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, and B.B. King on the same day.
Did you ever shoot the Beatles?
Did you ever shoot the Beatles?
I didn't really like the Beatles. Sorry about that. I was into Woody Guthrie when everybody was into the Beatles, I think.
Well, and that part of that's because you got your start in music videos, documentaries, still photography before, coming fully into, filmmaking.
Yeah, I think mainly I was doing documentaries before I started doing feature films full time. Most of the work I was doing was documentaries. Yeah.
Well, we have a long line there, so nobody wants to hear me ask questions. We're just going to jump straight to the line, I guess, and we'll go from there. So why don't you just tell us your name and ask your question.
Hey Roger, my name is Luke. You met me earlier today. You signed a book. You told me to present my photo in black and white. I showed you a couple of photos of mine. But the biggest question that I had was, you pay so much close attention to the way that architecture shapes the environment in this film. What inspires that? What makes you think about the way that the architecture inspires the narrative and inspires the story of the characters within specifically this film, Bladerunner 2049, or if there's any other film that the architecture shapes that?
Well, I think it's like different pre-production period we had on this film as opposed to many others. Since I spent a lot of time with Denis. We spent a lot of time in Montreal when he was cutting Arrival, but we were there doing storyboards, so we would work in the mornings and he would come in the afternoons and start talking through what we'd done in the morning. That was part of the process, but then at one point I went to London and Slovenia and to Hungary. Scouting with him, and a lot of it was about scouting the kind of buildings, the kind of architecture, because everything in the film in one way or the other is sort of based on something real, like the red read Las Vegas could have been based on New York last week, but it was actually based on the Havu in Northern Africa or something like that. And everything is sort of in some way based on reality. So we scouted a lot of sort of brutalist architecture, especially in London.
In London, huh?
There's quite a bit in London, brutalist architecture. I mean, a National Theatre on the South Bank is brutalist kind of in style. And, so then, this was something actually before even Dennis Gassner came on board. We were talking about the look of the film and the kind of architecture.
And also we were sort of creating a world. So in this world, what would be the architecture? Would they have newspapers? Would they have this? So we spent months talking about what this world would be. It's not like shooting a period film from the 50s where you kind of know what everything is. We were getting to create it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, they say, the sort of look of Las Vegas and everything really sort of started during those early discussions. And I mean, that final look of Las Vegas, for instance, wasn't finalised until the whole effects team came on, so it was quite a long journey, as they say, to find that actual look.
We have a long line here, so we're going to move on to the next question. Thank you, Luke. Appreciate that. And maybe a little bit related to that, as far as that look, we've talked this week quite a bit about how you like practical effects, practical sets, and obviously there's a lot of special effects still in that particular film, but how you don't want to work on green screen or LED volumes. Can you talk a little bit about shooting on this particular film, on how you achieved a lot of the looks you did without, the massive use of green screen or LED volumes?
I don't think we used a single green screen. I mean, obviously there's shots in the film that are total CG, or maybe everything's CG except for the spinner was a kind of element that we shot an element of. But the seawall and all that, when you see it wide, is a CG. But all the stuff during the storm, when the spinner crashes in the ocean and on the sea wall, that's something that was actually constructed. We actually built a tank in Budapest on a backlot to shoot the whole scene. The tank was about 160 foot square, I think, something like that. And so
there was actually remarkably little CG that for something like that. So many people have said to us, all that CG, but we were building the foreground and the midground, and just doing stuff in the background.
And even when, the scene with the pink joy, the big advert where she comes out of a 2D into a 3D, we did have a big screen there. We had that footage being played back, so all the lighting was interactive. But I mean, when she becomes a 3D image and comes out, obviously then that's a CG extension of what was actually on the screen in the first place. I think all of the scenes actually had mostly foreground and midground in camera. Even when he's on the rooftop early on in the rain, I mean, even there's some panning lights, and there's a big screen with a woman, sort of like an advert in the background. That's all done in camera. All that was changed was a few spinners fly through and some very, very far background lights were added, a few shadows of buildings. The reason to do it is not only just because it's cheaper, easier, dead eye, everybody else can see what we're actually shooting, but it's actually more fun,
Great. Go ahead and introduce yourself, ask your question.
Oh, hello, Roger. My name is Max. So I was wondering, what emotions and qualities does this picture evoke for you?
Loneliness.
Particularly your work in the picture.
Well, I hope my work kind of is in tune with the feeling of what the character's going through, on the feeling that the character's struggling with his own sense of reality. I mean, I hope what I was doing was enhancing that part of the story and the emotional reaction you have to the story and the characters and the shots. You know, I mean, you're just trying to make it all of a piece. My emotional reaction to the film, I think Denny is a really great director. I think this film, and I think Sicario, and I think the film that I didn't work on Sandy, are three pretty remarkable films because they quite simply are about something.
Thank you.
All right, next question.
Yeah, Roger, my name is Tank, and I guess I kind of like with the four films we've shown, how No Country and Jesse James are on film, and Sicario is sort of shot on digital. I know in the pod you talked about shooting on film versus digital. But I guess whether you're shooting on film or on digital, or like this movie, how important is authenticity to you, and like trying to, whether it's something that has CG in it, or like a shot of a character's face and making, I guess, the audience feel presence and make that world feel realistic.
I think that's what you're trying to do all the time, isn't it? I don't care if it's film or digital, emotional digital. I think that's a kind of completely non-argument, really. It's what you point the camera at, the framing and how you light it.
And also, I think that we try and shoot things the way we want it to ultimately look like, not to fix it later in post, but to get it on the day.
Those are all the filmmakers in the room applauding.
Yeah, even Bladerunner, I think, there were a lot of fact shots coming in, so we had to stay doing the final DI for about 3 weeks, I think, but basically we did the timing of 5 days, probably. I mean, that's usually what we spend on a film, is like 5 days, because we basically shot it the way we want it. I think Sicario we did in 3 days.
Yeah, but then we sat around and waited for the visual
effects, so you end up spending a couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, you're trying to immerse the audience in the story. I don't know what else to say, really. Yeah, you're not trying to create flash images for the sake of flashy images. I'm not using. The only film that I've used I've used kind of specialist lenses now and again. Jesse James is the only example that stands out as being a specialist lens. Otherwise, I don't want to be aware of the lens. I want the image to be as sharp and clean as I see with my eyes. And you're trying to immerse the audience in the story. So what I'm trying to do is just that. It's trying to be as immersive as possible. I don't really want an audience to notice what I'm doing. It's kind of nice when they do, but not in the way that means. You know what I'm saying? You want the audience just to be in the story.
Great, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Leopold. Mr. Deakins, as your career is going on, you started to work with directors whose resumes are much shorter than your own. How have your working relationships changed over your career, and as that sort of dynamic has grown, and sort of the legend of Roger Deakins has become this thing that it is?
I think the only thing that's really changed is you're a little more confident. A little more confident. And basically what you're always looking for is collaboration with the director. So no matter if the director's never done a film before, but you're going to work with them as a director, you still are obligated to create their vision. So you're still working with the director. The first film I kind of admit to, though I did a couple of others, but the first feature film that I admit to was with director Mike Bradford in 1984, but this was the one we did together before that.
And it was the same way as I worked with Denis, obviously not as extensive prep as on this film, but on Sakara it was the same way. You spend a few weeks talking through the script, just, talking about whether do you need that dialogue even. You're talking through the scenes and talking how you want to visualize it. And then you spend time scouting locations, and then you try and match it up and figure where you're going to have to compromise or where you're not going to compromise because of budgets and time and everything else. So I don't think the way I've worked now or worked with Sam, say on the last film, or with, say, Mike Radford all that time ago in 1983, I don't think it was very different. Maybe that's because I'm not somebody that changes very much, but no, I think that's the way I enjoy working. It's kind of, you have this sort of personal relationship that just evolves over the pre-production period and into shooting, and with luck, by the time you come to shooting, there's very little discussion that has to happen other than, some spontaneous reaction to something that happens on the set where the actors or whatever can happen, can change what you do from your plan,
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. And when you say Sam, you mean Sam Mendes, of course, for anyone who may not know. I'm assuming, but you never know, some people in the audience may not know what Sam Mendes we're talking about. Which Empire of Light, if anyone in the audience hasn't seen that yet, most recent. So check that one out.
Hi guys, my name is Frank, and the setup to my question is, I just want to tell you that that ending scene always destroys me. I think it's one of the most beautiful and poetic scenes in modern cinema, because outside, you've got the synthetic boy dying in the real snow. And the Vangelis score comes up, and then inside, the real girl is in the synthetic snow, and it's just, when Deckard puts his hand up, cut the black, it's just an emotional gut punch. And you just made it look so easy. So, that said, what was your most challenging scene in the film?
It wasn't Vangelis, by the way, was it?
It's Benjamin Wallfish.
What was that?
It samples the Vangelis score.
Yeah, it's
but it's Benjamin Wallfish.
Yeah. What was the most challenging?
Yes.
I think possibly the water tank was pretty challenging.
Yeah, the water tank, I suppose, just because of production way, it was going to be challenging, because we were going to go to Malta where there's a standing tank and they've got all the equipment, but then the budget didn't go that far, and it proved cheaper to be able to build an actual facility in Budapest.
And it was also very, very cold, and they were worried about killing Harrison. It was so cold, so they kept making the water warmer and warmer, so it kept getting more and more foggy.
But the funny thing was, I didn't know they kept making the water warmer and warmer, and it ended up going 75 degrees, but the air temperature was all virtually freezing, because the bubbles were freezing where we put the camera tracks and stuff. And of course that was giving all this amazing atmosphere, but of course most of the time it was too thick, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, but when it sort of blew through, when we put some wind machines on, it worked really well. But I never told production, I was glad of it, because they never asked me about it. So it was one of those lucky accidents that I will never tell anybody about, but now I suppose it's
Except
out.
for you guys, so don't tell them.
Trade secrets.
Thank you both.
Hi guys, I'm Bryce. Amazing film. I was just wondering, in your experience, how directors most effectively communicated the tone of each film to you, and how they made it to where everybody was like kind of on the same page as far as the crew. Because I feel like
If they do that.
yeah, exactly. I'm kind of nervous to get on a set and try to communicate that to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the hardest things, I think. But it's also hard, if you break it down, the director's trying to get his keys on board, like, the production designer, the costume supervisor, whatever, and the cinematographer, and the editor, and the music, but then those people, then I have to do that job with the people that are on my team, and then my gaffer or whatever has to impart that to the electricians or the dimmer board operator or whatever, so it's and that's one of the crucial things, and I think that's why prep is so important. I think that's why it's so important to have time before the whole intense pre-production process starts. Just have that time to sit down. With some directors, it's going to the pub and having a beer and just chatting about it or something, just to get in sync. But also, every director works in a different way, as I've found. Some directors, like Andrew Dominic for Jesse James, was really keen on getting images. So we had like a corridor in the production office full of images, but you could walk the corridor and you would be basically walking scene 1 to the end of the movie in images that we just all pasted up in some sort of order that reflected what his intent for the film. And other directors not visual at all. And sometimes, you bring reference images or a certain photographer's work to the table, so you have something visual to discuss. Everybody works differently, but it's a matter of finding that way of getting the team on board, really.
And I think it's important as a director to know that it is your vision, that everybody's there for. So to have that confidence and then be able to take on board what other people think. So if you ask someone, well, what do you think? First of all, it involves them so much more. Second of all, they may have a really good idea that you haven't thought of. But third of all, you don't have to. But you've made them feel part of it, and you possibly could have gotten a really great idea from it. So to me, the strongest directors are the people that are using the keys that they have chosen because they know what they're doing. So they're using them as tools and getting ideas from them.
Yeah, we've been lucky. Hear tales, and I've experienced a little bit where the director thinks you're trying to take the project away from them. They feel threatened, and I suppose in a way that's simple as that. And it's not true. It shouldn't be true. Certainly, it's not true. You're there to fulfill the director's wish, not anybody else's. There's a million ways to shoot a film, but there's only one that the director wants.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
And it's also why you end up working with a lot of the same people, because once you work with people that you like and that you work well with, you don't want to change that up. You want that consistency.
So much is about trust, isn't it?
Hello again, my name is Kate, and my question is, what was the new challenge you faced on Blade Runner that you hadn't faced before, and what was your favorite scene in the film?
I suppose I was going to say scale, but I was thinking that in a way Skyfall was bigger in scale than Blade Runner.
Well, I think the scene where joy melds into
the two girls melt.
yeah, when they melt, just
the other character.
The Lady of the Night.
The Lady of the Night. Yeah.
Mackenzie, that's her real name. But, just figuring out how to shoot that was really daunting. Well,
the effects supervisor and everybody, they wanted to shoot a scene with one girl and then just do a green screen shoot of the other girl, and then they would paste them together. And I said, there's no way that's going to work. For me, that's not going to work. And they said, well, where do you want to do? I said, I want to do both girls on set. We'll do the one girl first, whichever Denny thinks is the strongest character in the scene, take her out, and then do the other girl in the same space. And they poo-hooed it, basically. To be quite honest, they said that's not going to work. We shot a test. And they said, yeah, okay, we can manage that. Yeah. And the whole thing was, you put somebody... I said to them, Kay's room was lit by those wall lights that we spent a damn lot of time designing and mounting and putting the light in and having dimmer system, all the rest of what you do. And I said, well, how are you going to replicate that against the blue screen or green screen where you don't even put a light behind the girl when it's, you're shooting towards the girl? I mean, how's that going to work? So, I mean, they were great, actually. When we shot this test, they tried to do it, and they said, yeah, that we can make it work.
Yeah, and I don't think that you were really involved in this, but on a lot of these scenes that we did, they wanted witness cameras, which is just other cameras around, so they would have additional references, and I was adamant it could not be an Alexa, it had to be a more inferior camera, because I just was paranoid about it showing up in the movie. But on that one, they were so nervous about that film, that scene, and I felt badly for them, so I let them use an Alexa. I said, this better never show up in the film for the witness cameras.
Yeah.
But they did an amazing job. I really didn't think it was going to work as well as it did.
I'm just blown away that they argued with Roger Deakins about what looked best on camera.
Oh no, the effects supervisor has done far more larger effects-driven films than I ever have. I mean, so they had a lot of experience. It was very nice that Denny backed me up and said, let's do a test and let's decide,
That's a sign of a good collaborative director. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Hi, my name is Zachary. I was actually going to ask you guys about that very scene, but
You can adjust that microphone for everybody if you want to tilt it down a little.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. I was actually going to ask about that same scene, but thankfully I have a backup question. The 1982 Ridley Scott Blade Runner, probably 80-90% of the people in this room are here because of that movie, seeing it at a young age. That's obviously shot by Jordan Cronenberg. It's one of the most iconic cinematography displays in movies. When I watch this one, beautiful as it is, I don't really see that it feels the same way through the lighting. It looks a little bit less like a film noir and a little bit more like a contemporary sci-fi film. So I was curious if you had that in mind from the beginning, or if it was a conscientious decision to avoid looking like the previous film, or if there were any other pieces of inspiration that you guys used.
We didn't want it to look like the original.
No, I mean, when Denny posted the idea that he was going to do this film, it was actually the same conversation I had with Sam Mendes when he said he was going to do a Bond movie. I said, I don't really want to do it if it's got anything to do with the other film. No, because in this case, I'm not Jordan Cronenberg. I love his lighting. I mean, I have issues with the original film, but one of my favorite scenes of any movie is Rutger Hauer's death scene on the rooftop, and it's got nothing to do with the lighting. It's to do with the emotion that comes from that scene and that character, which I really took into this film, because in a way it's dealing with the same idea. What constitutes being human? So the way it's lit, it's a very different film. I mean, for a start, the whole concept of it being real world rather than film noir. I mean, it's much more naturalistic than the original film. The kind of the landscape and everything. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit more like other contemporary science fiction films, of which there aren't many. There's a lot of science fantasy, but there's very few science fiction films. I think it's just trying to do something different. So I don't. Yeah, it doesn't look like original. It doesn't look like a film noir. It either stands or falls by itself.
When we saw Jesse James, you cited, I think it was Sam Peckinpah as an inspiration for what you were doing there. Did you have anyone in mind when you were designing this during that prep time that you had so much of? That was such an important part of your process here.
It's hard to hear your question.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. During the Jesse James screening, you had mentioned Sam Peckinpah as the inspiration. I just didn't know if there was anybody here, or was it everybody?
When I said about Jesse James, Sam Peckinpah was dealing with in terms of the stories the emotions he's kind of dealing with, you know, the idea of, I said of the world changing and these people being left behind. Well, that's what I was saying about Blade Runner. I mean, I would reference Tarkovsky's Solaris, but I mean, it's not Tarkovsky's Solaris. I would love that film. If it was like a hundredth as good as Solaris, then I think it's pretty good. But I would mention that scene from the original Blade Runner. You know, I mean, it's those kind of, you know, or I don't know. There's all sorts of things. There's Camus, The Outsider. I mean, it's all sorts of things that you kind of connect with that not necessarily you're not copying the lighting because one's a book, but you know what I mean. You're trying to connect what you do with that in some way.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next person. Thank you. And there are 2 Solaris out there for everyone that's going to rush out and watch Solaris. Make sure you watch the right one.
Hi, Roger. My name is Casper. First off, just wanted to say that I love this film. It's one of the most visually stunning pieces of art I've ever seen in my life. The director of this film, Denis Villeneuve, said that when he was first approached with directing a sequel to Blade Runner, that he was initially filled with fear. He believed that if the sequel didn't do the original Blade Runner justice, that he would be blacklisted from the cinematic community, his career would be over, and that it would be his last film. His words, not mine. However, he also said that when he accepted all that as a possibility and then still decided to continue, that it gave him the peace and freedom to create a pure artistic act. Roger, you said in a roundtable to the Hollywood Reporter that this was an opportunity you couldn't say no to, but I was wondering if you went through the same process that Denis did. Was there any point in the making of this movie, either early on in the months where you spent storyboarding all the way up to post-production, where you really had to contemplate the consequences of possibly falling short, but then decided to continue? And if so, was there a certain peace or freedom that you felt because of it?
That's a lot of research that went into that question. This guy spent all week getting ready for this question. Hollywood Reporter, we're good to go.
Not a week.
No.
The past month, actually.
Okay, good.
Well, first James just said to me, you know, remember, it's not a sequel. In no way was it ever thought
That was
as
the
a sequel.
first thing we all settled on, not a sequel.
Yeah, you have a responsibility, but yeah, and all the way through. But then that's no different on any film. It doesn't matter. There's somebody you might be relating your film or the film you're working on with something that's come before. That's going to be all the way through. Any film you do is going to be related to something else in some way. A film's got to stand on its own in its own place. So yeah, there's always that pressure. There was the pressure of, would the sets be ready in time? Would it really work going from this set to that set? Could we get the atmosphere we were shooting downtown in Budapest on a night shoot. Could we get the atmosphere? Would they allow us to block that street? And blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's a million problems that come up on a film like this. And yes, all the time you have doubts. And I still have doubts. No, I mean, you never get where you really want to go with anything. Otherwise, you would stop doing it. Everything is built on something that's come before.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're moving through here. We only have 75 more people to go.
Hello.
James is just pointing out the prisoner shirt.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Clinton. So between all the films that you've done, my favorites are this, Prisoners, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Between each one of these films, I feel they have a drastically different color palette, with this one being a lot of neon colors, be it with when we see Joy and like the big pink hologram, or like all the Vegas sequence in this like bright orange and reds. Prisoners being more of dark, muted tones, and then Oh Brother, Where Art Thou being a lot of warm, earthy tones. What is it that makes you decide the color palette of a film before you start shooting?
It seems to me that it's quite obvious, but I mean, but I don't know. You kind of read a script and you talk with the director. I mean, obviously, a lot of the colors in this, for instance, the red of Las Vegas, that was something Denny said, and then I got these references from the WHO North Africa and said, well, can we do this with a sort of tonal variation of it, whatever? Is this a good reference? Other things, the inside of like Wallace's building there, the big corporate building. I mean, I guess I had the idea that if you're coming in from the outside, which is grey and rain and snow and, really dark, wouldn't somebody maybe want to come into sunlight? So I thought, well, let's make everything inside as though it was sunlight.
Well, it was also, too, he was such a rich guy that he could have sunlight.
Do anything
no
he
one
wants,
else.
Yeah. And I thought, well, that's kind of ironic. He's blind. Anyway. Certain things come like that. I mean,
and somehow prisoners didn't seem very neon colored.
No, I mean, again, prisoners was again wanting to. I mean, again, that came from Denny. We decided talking about it. We did not shoot. We didn't want to shoot in sunlight at all, but we had to for 1 or 2 days. But basically, everything's grey and gloomy and somber. And Oh Brother was really interesting because Joel and Ethan got the money for the film so that we would shoot in August, I think, in summer sometime, and they wanted it dry and dusty, but they needed to shoot in Mississippi because of the tax breaks. There we go. Okay, so Joel and Ethan said to me, but we want to look dry and dusty, and maybe autumnal, and like a painted hand-tinted postcard. Well, that's great. We're going to Mississippi for summer,
which is very, very green.
So we just sort of found a way to do it. And Joel said, well, aren't some people using this new digital finish? So we started playing with that, after spending 5 weeks trying to do it photochemically. Doing it digitally. And so the final look comes from many different places, really. But I laugh when you ask the question, because to me it seems obvious that it should look like the way it looks. I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And we've been talking some about AI this past weekend, and AI in the industry is everybody's worried about AI and stuff. Well, this film was really interesting because obviously, this could be some potential futuristic version of what we get in AI in the future. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what we spoke about at SMU? What could the impact of AI be on cinematography and what we're actually shooting moving forward?
I was just thinking, relative to the last question, what would AI do? Somebody had a T-shirt the other day.
I'm reading his mind.
What would Deakins do? Well, I would have a T-shirt. What would AI do? So what would Christmas look like? It would have tropical blue sky. Oh Brother would be in black and white, probably. God knows what this would be. I mean, but on the other hand, everybody, Jordan Cronenberg shot the original Bladerunner originally, and it looks very different than this. Everybody's got a different way of seeing, and that's what I worry about AI, because maybe everybody's AI will be the same, maybe, I don't know.
Go ahead, what's your question?
Yeah, my name is Nori Niven. I'm a huge fan. You've been such an incredible inspiration for everyone. James, you're amazing. You are incredible. Unfortunately, there's going to be a continued generation after generation of cinematographers who will be single because they're going to be looking around like, I need a production partner. This isn't working. Amazing. And thank you for the Dallas Film Commission for bringing them here and for your time. I had a really quick question about, I love the fact that we're in the Jared Leto space with Harrison Ford, and Jared sits down and there's a move that's very, very British, which is carrying him into the chair. Americans don't do that. I love the fact that the behind-the-scenes photo of you in the room, and you've got the boom arm with a traditional hand-carried you're carrying the weight of the camera yourself, and the technical lighting is so amazing, and I just love the fact that you're so tactile. You don't mind throwing a camera on your shoulder and running with it. That's incredible. I saw the screening in IMAX of this film originally, and it looked like it was timed for the IMAX theater. I was enveloped in orange light from the Las Vegas set, and when you went into the theater, my eyes hadn't dilated yet, so I couldn't see Ryan Gosling in the foreground. I could only see Harrison Ford in the background, and I counted to 3, and my eyes dilated, and I saw Gosling appear in the foreground. I came out like a come to Jesus moment. I was calling everyone, like, you will not believe what Roger just did. This is incredible. Was that on purpose?
Jesus. Definitely not. Sorry, we won't go there.
Thank you.
As far as humping the camera around, it's because I come from documentaries. I always operate, and I just love being by the camera. And I find it's really nice looking through the eyepiece because nobody bothers you. They bother my wife.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know this was going to be a religious revival here today. That's great. I love it.
No.
Hi, James. Hi, Roger. My name is Roger, too, but with the D. I have a question for both of you guys. What is the most interesting movie that you've seen this year, and why did it resonate with you?
Roger with a D has Roger without a D stumped for a moment.
Find that really hard. I watched The Wild Bunch again a few weeks ago.
That's a good one.
I also watched Stalker, actually.
Yes.
Well, recently? Well, you know, we do this podcast, and it's really interesting because we're actually watching, you know, films by directors or films that people that we're going to talk to have worked on, and we see quite a lot that we
Of their first films.
that we never knew existed or whatever, and that's actually. So I'm sorry, but contemporary films we haven't seen so many lately, but quite old ones we've seen quite a lot.
Well, last year, we saw Goodnight Albie, right? And we liked
Albie was
that.
good, yeah.
That was very clever.
Territory?
The Batman was really well done.
I really like Batman. I was inadvertently quoted in a Hollywood rag that I thought. Yeah, anyway, but I do think Batman was stupendously shot. I mean, it was great. It's fantastic.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. My name is Mickey. Just wanted to say one thing real quick. So Roger with the D, he's my best friend. He's a filmmaker. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the future you guys work together. My Twitter, his name is Hollywood Drift. I'm just going to plug him real quick. But anyways, just to say, okay, so I wanted to give you real quick things. So we're best friends. All of our best moments in life together have been going to movies. I want to say you've been responsible with so many moments, the both of you, where we've just been blown away. Like the seawall scene in this movie, in Skyfall when they're fighting in the penthouse up in the building, in 1917 when the lights are going off in the courtyard, like so many moments where we've just been in awe. And I just want to say thank you for that and for giving those moments to me and Roger. But additionally, do you have a movie where you is the equivalent of that to you? Do you have any moments where you're like, holy shit, like this is crazy, like I'm seeing crazy shit? And also, would you ever do a Star Wars movie? Thank you.
Well, I just said about Batman, I think it was stunningly photographed.
But like a scene, like a moment where you're just like, oh, whoa.
I think if cinematography works, I think you're telling me that my work is failed because I think if cinematography works, you don't have those come to Jesus moments.
Roger, take a compliment.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm impressed with. There's a large number of cinematographers now that do really fantastic work, and yeah, I mean, you could be watching. I mean, we would like watching Scandinavian noir detective series, and some of them, sometimes they go, how the hell did they get that? That's really beautifully shot. You know what I mean? Now, they can be anywhere, you know?
True. Okay.
And also Connie Hall has always been a huge inspiration.
Yeah,
and we recently
I mean,
saw In Cold Blood, which is an amazing film.
True. Yeah, In Cold Blood, I think, yeah. But I mean, also we did Fat City, which also blew me away. I mean, there's a lot of films when I was, before I was even thinking I could be in cinema in any way, there was a lot of films that blew me away. Peter Watkins' War Game, which was shot 16mm, kind of black and white, grainy.
And that's like your pen, and you're like, oh yeah.
I just thought it was just so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the combination of the image, the cinematography with the story, and what the director's trying to get across.
Yeah.
And when that works seamlessly together, you don't really notice it. You know what I mean? You're just drawn into the thing as a whole.
For sure, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope everybody's taking notes on their watch list later. Wild Bunch, Scandinavian Noir. Where do you find Scandinavian Noir? Like if you wanted, if I were on Netflix,
Yeah.
you can find it on Netflix. All right.
Look up Nordic Noir.
Nordic Noir on Netflix. The 3 N's.
Cool. Howdy, y'all. My name is Aaron Garcia. I guess.
Yeah, there's a fan question.
So my question is with regards to blocking and staging of scenes. As cinematographer, how significant of a collaboration is there between you and the director to accomplish these matters? And is this something that varies scene from scene, film to film? Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely varies, doesn't it, from scene to scene, film to film, director to director.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes there's a lot of talk before in prep about how it, or storyboarded and how it could be, but always when there's a rehearsal, there's a discussion afterwards with the director.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I even like with the Coen Brothers, everything's storyboarded in pre-production. But there's always a blocking rehearsal with the actors on the set on the day, on the morning of the shoot. And yeah, I'm always there. Yeah, and maybe suggest things and things done differently or whatever. It's that sort of exchange. And I think it's been like that. Every director I've worked with. I mean, the only time that didn't happen was in 1917.
Well, because we did that all in prep.
Because the shot had to be the shot. I mean, it had to be worked out in advance of the day of the shoot. The day of the shoot was then just a technical challenge for the actors and the team to capture what had already been mapped out.
And the thing is, when you're blocking on the set, oftentimes the director is looking at the performances and all of that, and the cinematographer is standing there and thinking about the shots. So the director does turn to the cinematographer afterwards and say, well, what do you think shot-wise? Often.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Sam. I do stuff with cameras. I have 2 questions. That's great. So my first question is, obviously Bladerunner is, an epic in scale and a very big film. I would like to know your thought process in capturing those types of scenes versus the first scene where Ryan Gosling and Bautista are like in such an intimate space. It's a very intimate scene. What was your thought process in that versus such a vast scale? And then the second question is in the scenes with Jared Leto, and you're in these brutalist structures with rammed earth and the water caustics and all of that. For some of the scenes, you'd be walking through a hallway and the shafts would go all the way through, just for that specific shot. But whenever you're, wider, there's
a lot of light moving around. Was there a system in that, or was it just like the shot looks cool, so we made it happen?
I think I thought the shot looked cool. No, not really.
Maybe a different way.
No, I mean, my favourite, interesting, you mentioned the Sapper Morton's farm scene at the beginning. It's my favourite scene in the whole movie. And it's also, I think, about the last scene we shot in schedule. And just because it was always a cover set.
And also remember going into it before we shot it and looking at it, none of those windows were there.
Yeah, there was a set, it was interesting. It was like a full set with a door and this yellow door because Denny wanted this sort of plastic yellow light coming in. And but there was no windows. I thought that's not really going to work because he doesn't have any lighting inside, so we're not going to see a lot. It'll be easy to shoot, but it won't look very good. And anyway, so we cut the set apart. No, we put some windows in it. What was I thinking? I mean, the whole thing about I'm joking about the windows and that, but I was thinking of those silhouettes. I was thinking, yeah, I want something really dark, but dark doesn't look dark unless you've got light to contrast it with. So I wanted that kind of feeling of the silhouettes of the windows and this light only creeping into the space, and then make a real point of the yellow at the door. Anyway, I was rambling on about that. How do I look any differently with a scene that's got a larger scope? I don't. I think that was that I just it's about the characters, about the relationship of the characters within the scene. Whether it's like two guys fighting on top of a tower block in Skyfall or something, it's still about the relation of the characters, and that it's not. It's about putting them in the space. I don't think I'm approaching any different. I think one of the hardest scenes in this film was when Ryan comes back and he's kind of like debriefed or whatever. He's in the white room. Well, we didn't know what to do with that. I mean, I say we, Denny and Dennis and I, we've been through all the other sets. When the android is birthed, that was a hard set. We came up with something. What are we going to do when he comes back and he's in the police station, he's getting downloaded or whatever it is? We just went, well, when you've got nothing, why not a white room? And then he said, yeah, what if it's a really small white room with a funny little camera on the wall? And that was it. It was like, we were out of ideas, but that was the idea. So, I'm just rambling, but I don't see any different approach, whether it's, big or small. It's still about, it's still about the character in some way and the character's relationship to that world.
And a lot of times it doesn't come just like that. It goes round and round and round in your head. And Wallace's office, my God, I didn't think you'd ever get that. Because, trying to figure it out, and is it a circle, is it an oval? And
as I said earlier, I started with the idea of, okay, if Wallace's building is kind of like sunlit or something, but the sun moves, so it's all got to move, which sort of dug myself a hole, really. And so I tried to bring that. There's a couple of scenes where it doesn't move, but I tried to bring that into it, just as a kind of like, somebody said, well, the film's not got noir elements, but to me that was a noir element, of this strangeness of this light just kind of moving. Okay, it's not shafts of hard light and all that stuff, but it has this kind of strange atmosphere, I think, because of the light moving, the shadows on the wall coming up,
All right, thank you.
Sorry, we question. I'm just doing. Was there a parallel between scenes with that, where the light was moving a certain way, and maybe in another scene it was moving a certain way because of that, or was it just?
Just each set, had to do it in a different way because each set needed to be lit differently. The one space that appears twice with different lighting, I just wanted to get the feeling of one being night and one being day, which it was outside. Obviously it doesn't relate inside, but I thought, yeah, but he would have one for day and one for night,
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sam, who does stuff with cameras.
Hi, my name's Marcus. So this is more in response to No Country for Old Men. There's the imagery that we experience in reality and the imagery that we experience through cinema. My question is there a metaphor or metaphysical, transcendental, a spiritual approach to discovering a project, or is it just a pragmatic approach?
I know we get into spiritual things again. No, I mean, I do think it's something that you discover. I just think that any director that's come in with a real hard look of a film that's not changed. No, I can't think of one. I think the director has an idea, has a direction to go in, and then it's that collaboration that sort of, doesn't it? Then it evolves into something, and at some point, maybe you do have that moment and the light bulb goes off and yeah, that really works, that makes sense. And I think that's one of the things we love about what we do. You know, you have those, you might think of something for weeks and weeks and then wake up in the middle of the night and go, why don't we do this? You know,
the person next to you.
Yeah. Write it down. Or it might just happen on the set when you're looking through the lens. You know, I don't know the process these things happen. That's what's exciting about it, really. I don't think there's any.
It's exciting but nerve-wracking because you think, before we actually have to do it, are we going to have to figure it out?
Right, it is true, yeah. But then that also uncertainty is kind of like also quite high, really.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing team, y'all. Thank you.
One person appreciated that comment about the amazing team.
Hey guys, so my name's Christian J. I used to be addicted to soap, but I'm clean now. But anyway, so earlier Katie came up here and she asked you guys what was the most difficult scene for you guys to film, and you brought up the melding scene and kind of went into how you shot that. And I'm just thinking, that was kind of my question. So great, fantastic. But so I'm kind of curious about what kind of prep work goes into a scene where you've got 20 different assets kind of going on all at once. What kind of departments you have to coordinate with to pull something off like that. Because just watching that scene every time, my brain practically just melts, seeing how you see one actress's face through the other and you see one feature and it just kind of blends into some sort of vaguely recognizable human being, just something like that. How do you guys just go around even prepping something that seems so hard to even wrap your mind around just watching the final products?
Well, I think, that's Denny's concept of these two characters melding. And then, how do you do it? But then you shoot, as I said, we shot a test, and the effects guys were kind of working on how that would end up as a visual interpretation of what Denny was after.
Well, also the whole character of Joy was a big discussion as to what she was. Would you see through her? Would she be able to pick something up? And that, for a lot of prep, we didn't know. And we kept trying different tests.
Yeah, there's a danger with effects to go too far. What happens to a hologram when the rain falls? Yeah. So there was they did all these tests and all this fancy looking stuff going on, but it was all distracting because actually you're saying to the audience, this hologram is a real person, or does have a soul, maybe. You wanted because Ryan Kay, you wanted him to believe this woman was something more than just a hologram or sex for money. And so there was a delicate balance there. So that's why her transparency and everything else is quite minimal. It's enough to tell you if you look. So that also works really well with the blending scene because that is a scene where it actually tells you exactly what she is,
But also, we shot it, we gave it to Paul at the visual effects house, And he came up with a lot of that. I mean, I was surprised when he made the face, parts of the face were completely different, but they were parts of the girls. So he did a lot of work on that.
I mean, basically on the set, we shot it, we shot it with the main character as a scene, then we put the secondary character in and reshot it again with that secondary character mimicking what the first take was. You know, you got playback and everything, and you could really do it over and over. So mimic it as close as possible, and then it was up to effects, and we shot a plate of the set with each camera angle, so that gave the effects team the way of, you know, rotoscoping one character out and blending them, you know. So they had lots of they had all the kind of flexibility in the world. It just took a lot of people a lot of time to do the rotoscoping.
Well, hey, thank you very much for answering that question.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Commissioner, for making this for us. My name is Demetria Glover. My question is, you kind of alluded to this already, but how often do you allow budget constraints to either hinder or influence your original vision? And if so, is there any one film that stands out?
Is there only one
film that stands out?
Where budget constraints maybe affected what you wanted to do.
With limitations comes inspiration.
That's a great responsibility.
We always tell ourselves that. I mean, the budget is a real thing. The problem occurs when there is a certain budget you're trying to stick in with, but then the director wants something much bigger, and really the producer should be telling the director, calm down, but the director's saying to us, but I want this. So that's a problem, because how do you make that happen? But budget is always a concern. So you think, do we put more of the budget on this scene and then find another way to do it much less expensively on this other little scene?
Well, you talked about the Vegas sequence in this one. Maybe relay that story about what happened with the casino in Vegas with Elvis and the musicians on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I was going to mention that because it's all about finding a way to do it the best you can for the time and the money you've got. I mean, I think that happens on every film. It doesn't matter what scale it is. As I said once before, as soon as you pick up a camera, you're compromising. I mean, there's no way it's not a compromise in some way or the other. There's the Vegas show with Elvis and all that. We're in a production meeting, and it was like, oh, we spent all the money on these other sets, and the effects on this is going to go over, and the blending of the two girls is going to cost so much. So what are we going to do for Vegas? We haven't got a location. How are we going to shoot it? And I said, well, we've got any stage. We've got a free stage. They said, oh, we've got one stage. I said, well, we just black it out. I'll just light it. Like, it's a show. Well, you don't have to see any background. Now, that might not have been exactly what the production designer wanted, or Denis really, at first instinct, they wanted this very glamorous, you know, Las Vegas gold and red background, sort of wall and doors and all the rest of it. But we ended up with just black backing on the stage walls, and it's all just done with lights and, you know, some modular furniture and a stage, you know, that's freestanding. So, you know, you make something work with what you've got and the time you've got to shoot it. I mean, actually we spent a lot of money getting a lighting company to program all the lighting. We had this whole stage of lighting that went for whatever the length of the scene was, and it was all programmed out. And that took a lot, because there's a lot of different variety in it. Variations of the lighting, but it was all programmed. We actually shot the scene in less time than it was scheduled for, because we'd done all that prep, you know, even though we'd spent a lot of money on it, we saved a day shooting, you know. So yeah, you just find a ways to make it work. And as James said, I think if you didn't have restrictions, you wouldn't have something to react against. You know, if somebody came to you, producer came to you, everything you want, go anywhere you want in the world, I'd be lost. I think any director would be lost, really. I think.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jesus. Before I do my question, I just wanted to say that this is one of the few movies that actually made me into a cinephile today, and it motivated me to become a photographer, and it was a very significant moment of my life when I watched it, back when I was like 12 years old when it came out, so thank you for that. My question is about something that you were talking about earlier, but I just want to elaborate a little more on that, which is you were talking about how it's in a way important to not make the director feel like you're taking over his film. And as a cinematographer, you are also an artist yourself, and you want to make the films in which you work to feel like you are adding something and that in a way you are part of it and it's your work. So how do you balance having a voice in your work and adding something that maybe nobody else could, while also enhancing and respecting the vision of the director that you're working for?
Well, if you want it all to be your way, you should be a still photographer.
Director. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I thought about directing a number of times over the years, but I actually love what I do, and I feel that I do make a contribution, and some films that might not be as apparent in others, but I think I do contribute to the final look of something in every film I've worked on. There's something of me in it, and also it's not just, you know, the cinematographer's job is not just making the image, it's actually running a crew. It's actually collaborating with maybe, you know, anything from 5 to 200 people. And it's about that experience, and that's what you add to the film, the people that come with you, the whole. And it's also, you're partly responsible to create the mood on the set and the space for the actors to do their work in. So, you know, I think, I mean, I'm not, you know, I feel every film that we've worked on, I've worked on before I met James, has been a part of me in some way. Even, let's say, whether it's noticeable or not, it doesn't really matter. I feel more comfortable, I feel more satisfied doing what I do as a cinematographer than that I think I would as if I was a director trying to do it, you know?
Yeah, my question was more about like how do you like do the editing without also like, you know, like how does that work in a way? How does that relationship work? I should say it like that. I'm sorry.
No, you just said it. It's a relationship. It's a collaboration. I mean, and sometimes it doesn't work, and you don't really want to be there. Sometimes you don't have a relationship with a director. No, you don't. I mean, you're in the wrong place. It just doesn't. You just don't. You know, you just don't somehow get on, blend.
I think you can also be in a situation where the director might be a little insecure, and so on the side you say, well, maybe we should do it this way. No, that's a terrible idea. The director walks away, and 20 minutes later comes on the set and says, I've had a great idea, and this can happen, and this is what we're going to do. So then what you do is, it's for the better of the film, and you just remember, and you know that you made the film better, even though no one else does.
Well, you know you've made that contribution, and you kind of just smile to yourself and think, oh, I heard that idea. It's fine. I mean, ideas can come from anybody, any direction. It's the final product that matters, and who cares where it came from? If you, I mean, you just kind of feel, yeah, I'm part of that movie and No Country for Old Men and movies that I really think have something to say and are more like the films that led me to be part of the film industry in the first place.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, James. Hello, Roger. My name is Andrew Red. I want to thank both of you for your time, and also the Dallas Film Commission and the Texas Theater for helping put this all together. My question for you is, how do you approach pre-production for a film like Blade Runner, and this is for both of you, by the way, for Blade Runner versus like Sicario or There Will Be Blood, any of the other films that aren't as visual effects heavy? Do you change your approach, or is it kind of the same no matter what film you're going to, regardless of the effects?
The first time we worked with Danny, I don't know, I had 3 or 4 weeks prep, I suppose, 5 weeks. But I didn't have so much time talking with him, going through the script. But we enjoyed the time we did have. And on Sicario, he made sure we had the time. We were in the production office. I remember we'd be in the production office. He'd lock the door so nobody would come in while we were discussing the script and starting to do storyboards and all the rest of it. And then that just extended into Blade Runner. I don't know how much we had, months and months and months. And particularly 2 or 3 months prior to other people coming on board, where we just sort of explored it.
Right, and then something like 1917, we had a lot more prep because we had to, Roger and Sam sat down and discussed without the concept of a single shot. Where do you want the camera to be? Do you want a 2-shot then? Do you want to be behind them, in front of them? And then we had to figure out how to shoot it. And then all of the departments needed to know where that shot started and ended. So that was a much longer prep. While some other movies...
Yeah, so the process, in a way, is very similar every time. Blade Runner, I don't remember us having a discussion about effects. Not until the effects supervisors came on and we were actually well into prep, proper prep.
Yeah.
When we were in Montreal, we weren't talking about effects.
No. Anything was
We were talking
possible
about concepts and what should it be like, Denny would call it the one chance you had to dream, and after that it's all compromise.
But once we got to Budapest, we had a lot of meetings about it.
Yeah, then you have endless meetings. But the actual start of it is trying to conceptualize something without feeling the restraints of budget, time, effects, complexity, or everything else.
Well, that's true. You sit around and you try and figure out what it is you want, if you could have anything. And it's the same thing with 1917. That's what you did. And then you figure out, with this budget, how am I going to do it? What am I giving up?
It's the same when I was mentoring a film I shot in 1983, which was a low-budget film in Scotland. It was the same process. What do you want? Let's look at the locations. How can we make this work? That doesn't work. What do we need? You just break it down. It's the same approach, really. Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, you're basically saying if it's a $100 million film or if it's a $5 million film, you still have to give things up no matter what it is. Just depends on what you're giving up.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Breck, and a lot of the films that we mentioned, including the one we watched today, have a lot of horror elements to me. A lot of Blade Runner, Sicario, Prisoners have a lot of these kind of horrific themes to them, even if they're not necessarily considered a horror film. And I was wondering from the both of you if you had any particular favorite horror movies themselves, and have they ever inspired you at all in your own work?
Horror movies. I think when I first saw Hour of the Wolf, Bergman's Hour of the Wolf kind of blew me away. I haven't seen it for years. I've got to watch it again. And Murnau's Nosferatu, I think, gave me nightmares. I do love horror movies. I'd like to shoot a real horror movie.
I'd love to see that. Were you ever a fan of the Universal horror films, growing up? The old Frankenstein, Wolfman. I love 1941 Wolfman, one of my favorites.
So mad about those, but yes, I used to like the Eastern European things, really weird. There's some great Russian movies that are like horror movies. There's a war film called Letter from a Dead Man, I think it's called, by Alexander Germain, which is pretty wonderful and horrific. It's a great movie. But I guess it's strictly not a horror film, it's just a...
So great. Is anybody keeping a list of all these films so that later we can post it online? Say Roger's recommended films for this weekend. Hour of the Wolf, Letter, what was that one? Letter Russian?
I think it's Letter from a Dead Man.
Letter from a Dead Man.
You can find it on, there's a website, Soviet and Russian cinema.
No, Soviet movies online.
Yeah.
Is that like BritBox? Soviet movies online?
$5 a day, you can watch anything you want. It's got all Tarkovsky, it's got everybody's film, every Russian and Soviet film ever made. It's really great. During lockdown, pandemic, I was going through it and finding these wonderful movies.
Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you all for being up on stage, and thanks to the Dallas Film Commission. My name is Jack. I'm currently in film school, working as a freelance cinematographer. And my question is, when you're working with a new director, what is something that makes them really stand out to you?
Well, if they have a vision right away, that's a good thing.
It's just passion, really.
Passion.
I mean, we work with directors that we've worked with for quite a few, the last years. I think the last time, John Crowley we worked with once on Goldfish, that I haven't worked with before, obviously. But it's passion, it's passionate, man. I mean, actually, all the directors we work with are pretty passionate, aren't they?
Passionate and being collaborative.
Yeah. Really, what stands out other than that? I don't know. I mean, I've worked with the director that has said, I know nothing about the camera or setting shots. I want you to do that, and I'm just going to deal with the script and the actors. And I've, obviously worked with Joel and Ethan a long time, and they know so much about all aspects of it, So I don't want any specific thing from a director other than that, just feel that I'm going to get on with them and feel their passion for what they're going to do.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I think that's really interesting to hear you say is that, it doesn't matter if the director doesn't know anything about the camera, as long as if they're passionate, they have strong vision, and you feel like you can work well together, that's what's most important. They don't need to know the lens choice or, whatever, depth of field you're shooting at or anything like that.
And the worst thing is when you're working really, really hard and you think the director doesn't want to do anything. It is like, doesn't want to do a rehearsal afterwards when we desperately need a rehearsal to figure out what the hell we're shooting the next day. That's the worst. You want a person that, like you, wants to make the best movie that can be made with this very low budget.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. My name is Spencer. James and Roger, thank you so much for being here, taking the time to answer all of our questions. Blade Runner kind of takes a departure with colored lights and stuff like that from kind of your previous stuff. And I just wanted to ask, and James, you can answer this too. Do you have a favorite color? And
black.
Vice versa, a color that you're like, I don't want to, I just hate it. Or like, oh God, they're making me shoot it.
Green screen.
Yeah, green in that context, yeah.
I'm not that fond of orange. It can be kind of harsh sometimes. But I like colors when they're put together.
Thank you.
That's it? Favorite color? Okay, thank you.
Hey there, James and Roger. Thanks for coming. This has been fantastic. My name is Michael. I want to ask a little bit about social media, actually.
Well, and Roger's not answering.
Well, it's actually a question for both of you, so that's great.
He doesn't know anything about it, that's what.
I read a lot about authors, journalists, film critics bemoaning the effects that social media have on attention spans of audiences as they younger audiences in particular. And, I find that to be a travesty if true, because we have this beautiful film right here that's about 3 hours long. And when I talk to my younger cousins and family members, when they think 3 hours, my God, they'd rather be doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok with that kind of time. But I remember reading, it was a Playboy article with Stanley Kubrick, and he was talking about how he used to ship tapes of the Super Bowl to England, where he would live, and it was because he didn't like the football, he liked the commercials. He used to say that the commercials refined the storytelling to the point where there was no fat in the story. It was the essential story within 30 seconds. So do either of you, both of you, have an opinion on the effects of social media as it relates to the attention spans of young people? So Stanley Kubrick liked 60-minute or 90-minute commercials or whatever, second commercials.
That's right, yeah.
And yet 2001 has got some of the most longest held shots. Oh, Barry Lyndon. Yeah. Or, my favourite film, Dr. Strangelove, one of my all-time favourite films. It doesn't look like a commercial at all. And okay, but I'm not getting personal about this, but some films that are 2.5 or 3 hours long feel like they're 8 hours long. And they feel so boring. But others feel like they're only 90 minutes long. I don't know what I'm saying, really.
But I think you're right that there is sort of a lack of an attention span, because nowadays if you try and take a movie and build slowly to something, as you could have in the past, a lot of people will reject it and won't like it because they just want to know, like a Marvel film, this happens and this happens, then this happens, and that's what they're comfortable with. So I don't think there's a change.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between filmmaking and narrative storytelling. See, I think filmmaking is, whatever it's Dr. Strangelove, or it's Tarkovsky's movies, or it's Kurosawa, or it's Alan Rene. I could go on. That's filmmaking. But most of what we're seeing now, which has been, I think, driven by by people's attention span and by commercials and commercialism, is just kind of narrative storytelling. And what it ends up being is a lot of talking heads. I don't think that's filmmaking. I think there's a whole world of filmmaking that is kind of wonderful and wondrous.
Yeah.
But we haven't scratched the surface yet, and I don't see many people still scratching.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with you. Is there anything from short form that you think has positively affected cinema?
Well, short films are great because it's like a short story. You have to tell that story. It's a discipline in a way.
Okay, thank you.
James and I were just talking about how Roger's starting his new TikTok account coming soon. Keep an eye out for that.
Thank you.
A lot of selfies with Roger on TikTok, dancing videos, and more coming soon. Speaking of short films, we'll give a quick plug to the Oakland Film Festival coming up next weekend here, where you get to see some excellent short films here at the Texas Theater as well.
Hello, my name is Chris. I want to preface this. This is a three-parter, so please forgive me. Every single film bro in here wants to know this. What is your letterbox? Letterbox? No? Okay.
It's an app. It's an app on the phone.
Very important. Social media. Real question here. What is something that you see in young filmmakers that you want to see more of, and what is something you see in young filmmakers that you want to see less of?
Oh, no, I don't. I mean, that'll be it for me. I mean, we see a lot of students' work, and we sometimes judge films, online. We watch students' films from around the world, and it's just really inspiring to see where people are and what they're trying to do. We watched somebody's film yesterday that somebody had given us the day before, and it was a wonderful 30-minute short film, that I thought was just stunning. And so there's a lot of inspirational work out there. I just hope somebody takes those people in hand. You need the creative producers and that to allow them to go to a larger format.
So, in response to the question, though, I think that what we love is the passion. When we see the passion and the creativity, what we don't like is when we see them trying to create something with flash. Just using a lot of flashy stuff as opposed to remembering what the story was.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it was a big no on your letterbox question.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Philip. Thank you for coming.
A little closer to the mic, Philip.
You got it. Thank you for coming. The movie was awesome. Second time I've seen it. It gets better every time. I'll probably watch it 5 more times. Mike, I have 2 questions. The short one is kind of simple, but really got to ask it. What do you do to practice cinematography outside of the set? Or do you practice cinematography outside of the set? Is that photography itself, film photography? Do you do anything to practice it? Because I'm an aspiring cinematographer and I'm always itching to practice it. I can't always get on set to practice it, but I'm always looking for that way to scratch that itch. And then answer that one first.
I don't really do anything deliberately practice, no. I mean, I've also thought about it and never done it, but I mean, today we went to the museum here, looked at a lot of paintings and various things. I mean, I take stills, but I don't see that really that related to what I do in film, but I watch a lot of films, and we watch an enormous amount of films, and that. But in terms of practice, taking a camera out and lights and then practice, I don't know what to practice without a story to practice on, and I don't write.
Yeah. Then the last one, real quick, is where did you take your leap of faith into the industry? So my dad told me it's you work a lot and try to get in the industry, but there's going to be a point where you take that leap of faith and go, okay, I'm not going to be doing a 9-to-5 on the side. I'm going to be doing filmmaking for the rest of my life. Where was that moment in your life? Did you take that leap of faith and okay, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to do this, even if I go bust and it all blows up from here. I'm going to take that leap of faith.
I did the sort of art college film school route. I think my leap of faith was leaving home to go to art college, really, and say, I don't want to do what my dad did with his life. I didn't want the profession that he did. He was a builder. I mean, I used to work on building sites and stuff with him, but I didn't want that as my life. And so I think just taking that jump and going away from home to art college, but that's not really any kind of light bulb moment. It was a slow transition from that to finding myself on a film set with some great actors, and I'm suddenly thinking, this is me,
Thank you.
Of course, you did quit the business a couple of times, and then you leapt back into it.
When was the last time you quit the business?
That was a while ago.
Pre couple of statues.
Way back not go then.
Hello, my name is Xiaoan. My question is, what is the way you like most, how you think is most efficient that directors talk their visions with cinematographers? Do you think storyboard is absolutely necessary?
For think what is that?
Using Storyboard.
No, definitely not at all. No. I don't think really. I did work with many people that storyboarded until working with Joel and Ethan Cohen. The first time I did with Sam Mendes, we didn't storyboard at all. No, I don't think storyboard is necessary. I think some discussion, some prep,
Well, going through the script together.
Yeah, you're going through the script and kind of envisioning it. I mean, just kind of like, but it doesn't have to even, it's weird because it doesn't even have to be like being at all specific about what shots are or anything. It's just a sort of feel of the film. I mean, I think you've just got to get on the same page, director and his crew, as to what you're trying to achieve. Just, I think images have emotional resonance, obviously, so I think you can talk on an emotional level about a script, and that impacts the way everybody's going to work on it and what they come up with. So I don't think there's any one way of doing it. I mean, I say on Jarhead with Sam, we didn't really do anything. We discussed the sets and what spaces we needed, and then we put the actors in there. They let the actors do what they wanted to do, and I just shot it handheld. I mean, that's how we started, and then we just developed the scene with the camera. So there's not any one right way of doing it. I don't think.
So you do need storyboard, you do need like a mood board or pictures. Do you think the most important thing is you and the director can understand the script the same way? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That mood boards helps. Usually a production designer will do a whole set of mood boards. I don't think that's totally necessary. You can discuss imagery by each bring in sort of a photographer's work that you like or something. Just as a starting point, you might talk about other movies, but I found that's a real rarity, talking about other movies.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you both for your time. I have two quick questions for both of you. The first would be, is there a piece of literature that in particular either of you feel like would be interesting for you to adapt into a film, to work on? Like if a director came to you with that book in particular, you would jump at that opportunity. And then my second question is a bit selfish, but I'm just curious if either of you have a favorite Wong Kar-wai movie.
Favorite, what was it?
Wong Kar-wai movie.
Stumped them.
Books. I love reading books. There's so many. I mean, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start, sorry. Wong Kar-wai movie, I suppose you got to say In the Mood for Love, haven't you? But I don't like, I guess. Let's go! Yeah, but I mean, books, I don't know, there's so many books. I would love, the last book I read is John Sayles, the film director, but also as a writer. He's got a book it came out just a few months ago about two characters after the Battle of Culloden, and the birth of the American nation, really. It sounds a big topic, it is. I don't know how you make a film like that. It would be a very long one, but it would make a wonderful film.
It's another 3-hour movie.
Oh, this would be a
12-hour movie.
12, yeah.
Thank you both.
Hello, my name is Maximo, and for Bladerunner, I noticed a lot of moving lights, shafts of light coming in. Do you remember anything specific about the lighting rig that you use? What lights did you use? Sorry, I'm an electrician and gaffer, so just curious about the technical aspect of that. And how, when you do rigs, do you yourself design them, or do you work a lot with the gaffer? I'm sure you do, gaffer and key grip, or you're like, I want this light to do this, you figure it out.
We do lighting diagrams. I mean, I talk on that case in this film. I talked at length with Billy O'Leary, who's a gaffer I worked with since Sid and Nancy days, on and off. And he was with us in Budapest. But I'm very specific about the kind of unit I want. Maybe not necessarily if it's a 2K for an L or a 5K for an L, because I usually understand. But the moving lights, some were moving, some were done like a chase. The scene where you first meet Jared Leto was 3 circles, each had sort of, I don't know if it was like 20 odd T12s on a chase. The last night scene where Harrison Ford meets Rachel again, there was 300 betweenies on a big circular, 30-foot circle of pipe.
So you prefer tungsten over LEDs?
Well, I did in this case, because I wanted the way they died. And the light come on. I wanted the way it would get warm as the lamp dies. I want the softness of the edge. There wasn't a really good LED for an L at that time. You couldn't have done the color shift without a huge amount of programming, and they would have been about 40 times as expensive as getting 300 betweenies. There's a lot of little lamps, but they were really cheap because nobody really wanted to use them anymore. And the T12s as well. It wasn't a huge expense, in fact, because again, we had some sort of deal with the lighting companies. So, and what else did we? Billy found that there was Barbizon, a place in New York, lighting supplier in New York, had 24K bulbs for sky pans. So we took the 24K bulbs and put them on a little pulley rig and had them go up and down, or had them chase along the ceiling. When they walk down the corridor between the replicant statues, that's these bare bulbs just on a trolley rig that Billy figured out, and he literally pulling the bulb by hand across the set to give the shafts of light moving. So, there's lots of different ways of doing things, and I guess I had too much free time. I came on here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was great. Our first real technical question there, so that was fun.
Hi, Roger and James. Do you guys have any essentials that you take to set to make your days more comfortable, since they are very long?
Tea, lots of tea.
Decaf coffee.
Yeah, right. Only decaf for Roger.
Any specific shoes you wear to make your standing on your
We're in Texas. He's got some boots on here. So.
Actually, I got these in Georgia. They're Georgia farm boots, but they're made in New Jersey.
Perfect. Hi guys, I'm Laura. I just wanted to say thank you to Texas Theater, also the Dallas Film Commission for this wonderful opportunity, and thank you guys for being on stage and talking to us and answering all of our questions. But I wanted to just say that my husband and I are actors, but in between a slump, we will produce short films, whatever we can. So it's just very inspiring to see a husband and wife on stage, working together, doing this stuff. So thank you so much for being here. My question is, we've got just this tour alone. 1917, 2049, Sicario, Skyfall, a myriad of things. The main character's story is much the same, where they're striving for something. But overall, the story it's different. It's a different time. It's a different genre. It's a different whatever. What is your first step when you get the script, or when the director comes to you, or whatever? What is your first step in preparing for a film? Whether it be 1917, whether it be Sicario, what excites you? What begins that journey for you guys?
Well, we read the script first and see whether it appeals to us. Mm-hmm. And if we like it and it moves us, then we talk to the director before taking the job to make sure that we're all on the same page, because maybe they want to do something completely different.
And
Yeah,
then,
it's really about it's really just, just building that relationship with the director before even, obviously, you read anything, you read a script or read a novel, you visualize it in your head, but you try not to kind of like settle on anything until you've had a discussion with the director, because the director can have a different interpretation. And it might be one that, excites you, but it might not. It might be one that doesn't excite you. I went for an interview once with a director, and the first thing they said is, I want this to look like Shawshank Redemption. I couldn't have been out the door more quick. Because every film should find its own visual kind of space, really, I think. Anyway.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ricky. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. My question is about the future. You've achieved so much, the impact on cinema, the book you just published, and the way you guys engage with fans of your work. And I just wanted to know, are there other mountains you want to climb or adventures you both want to go on collaboratively that you haven't yet, whether it be professional or personal?
Everest would be good, actually, but no. Well, we're doing a podcast that's really sort of taken off. It's something we started just before the pandemic, and it just sort of has taken off in a way that neither of us expected, really.
And we actually have 2 other things, but we're in the midst of trying to figure out whether it's going to work or not, so can't really talk about it. So
so it's kept us really busy, and there's no film projects at the moment. I don't know. We do hope that we'll be offered something and we'll be out there again. But
pretty sure that'll happen.
I don't know. I really don't know. But I say it's the podcast is really interesting, I think, and we get satisfaction from it because we feel we are contributing. And when so many of you come up and say we love the podcast, it's like, it really does actually have a big effect. That's kind of nice. So, whatever you do, you're trying to enrich people's lives or some pretentious statement like that, but you are trying to give something, and to get that sort of feedback, it's like, okay, maybe we'll keep doing the podcast for a while.
Please do. It definitely enriched a lot of our lives. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're coming up on the last questions here. This better be good.
Hi. From an artistic and a storytelling perspective, if my memory serves me, Denis Villeneuve and the Coen brothers.
Can you go a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah. From an artistic and storytelling perspective, Denis Villeneuve and the Coen brothers, if my memory serves me, have pretty restrained romantic scenes. And I was just wondering, I think I prefer it, and I was just wondering if you could help me make something that's not published. What went into those decisions from the director?
Restrained,
romantic scenes, yeah.
But they don't have sex scenes.
Well, I would say, the one that, like, you watch something like Euphoria, and they're kind of like taking it to the nth degree on steroids. So I think I prefer it this way. I was just wondering if you could help me understand what goes into those decisions.
It's like they don't also have unnecessary action scenes. They don't have flashy lighting. They don't have ostentatious camera moves that are just there for themselves. If it's not part of the story and there to sort of serve a purpose, there's sometimes you think, well, some of the Coen brothers' violence is really very, very vivid, but then you look at Quentin Tarantino's work and think, no, it's pretty mute, really. Well, the thing about their violence, when it is really vicious, it's done so quickly, it's almost over in the blink of an eye, and it feels so real that it doesn't feel gratuitous in my head anyway. Because sometimes I do kind of worry about violence in films. I don't like it at all. But sometimes it does make a point, and but generally I mean, generally sex scenes are there to sell a film, aren't they? They're not really, I don't know. I mean, most of them I find quite there for commercial reasons and not much else. I don't know if they think like that. I've never talked to either the Kyles or Denny about that in particular. I mean, Denny's not prudish about any of that at all. Actually, some of his films have quite, I wouldn't say explicit sex, but like one of the first films I shot, 1984, there's a scene in where the main two characters, a man and a woman, are sort of naked in a room and wandering around. And you don't think about it. You know, so it's all context, isn't it, really?
But there's also the fact that when the studio and the director agree to do a film, oftentimes there's a discussion about what the rating's going to be. And so that actually comes into play in that it's a lot easier to get the rating that they want if they don't do heavy sex scenes. So.
Yeah, and there's also the conversation about how many action scenes you have to have in your movie. You know, I mean, it does happen, you know.
Well, that's because there actually is a person in the studio that says, okay, so you have Benicio, this is Sicario, Del Toro in this film, so that's a 3. Then you have this car chase, so that's whatever points. And they add the points together and then say, okay, so this many points, then this is what the budget has to be.
Well, you need a couple more car chases, we'll give you a bit more.
Yeah, I know.
It is a business.
Yeah, right.
It is a business.
They keep
All
telling
right.
us.
Thank you very much. Tanner, I'm assuming you don't have a question since you've been driving around with them all week. So. Oh, now you do have a question. All right. This is the last question.
So
No pressure.
Tanner.
No pressure.
All right, thank you guys. First, thank you for sharing your first time here in Dallas. It's really an honor to be with you guys and to ask you this final question for the night. So my question is, what would you say is the big difference between shooting a film in Europe or with a European crew or a crew in the UK versus a crew in America? Because I know that through this documentary I watched called Alien, and it's talking about James Cameron. He was frustrated about how the crew needed to take, I think it was like this, like they had to take lunch or tea time at a certain time of day. And is that something you experienced, or is that something you experienced while you were filming in Europe versus?
Actually, nowadays in Europe, they have what they call, sorry, this is my pet peeve, a 10-hour continuous day, and we never do anything under 14 or something. And so they don't let you stop for lunch because they say, but you'll get off in 10 hours, which isn't true ever. So but that's more recent in Europe.
I don't think it's much difference. I mean, but the thing is,
you don't get lunch.
Either side of the Atlantic, it's about the crew you have with you. You know, it's about the team that you choose, I think, and the way they want to work. I mean, I remember doing a film in about 1986, and I remember working 90-odd hours in a week. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's like, yeah, you could do that here. I remember on a big production here, doing a 23-hour day. I remember we did 11 hours without a break, and I complained to the producer. And I actually never worked with him again, but that's all right. No, I think it's whoever you work with, and it's not, yeah.
But then there's also the difference in the systems, the grip and electrics.
There's a different system, and then the grip and electric over here, but it's not like that. You know, the electricians in Europe deal with diffusions and balanced materials and all those sort of things, and it's just slightly different system. But
so sometimes when you're mixing crews, it becomes a little difficult because whose system are you going to go with?
Yeah.
Have you ever had an opportunity to work on, like Clint Eastwood, infamous, famous, whatever we want to use for, having like the 8-hour day, kind of thing, like 8 or 9 hours supposedly, that I've heard. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but everybody says he does it 8 hours, 9 to 5, and he's done, and they're done for the day.
Well, we worked with Norman Jewison a couple of times. Once on a TV movie and once on Hurricane with Denzel Washington. And yeah, I don't remember us going over. We broke for lunch. I don't remember us going over 10 or 11 hours.
That's the old days, though. I remember working on something and we were like in our 23rd hour, and I was asking the producer, why can't you just add some extra days, because we are so under schedule. He said, because I can hide the overtime, I can't hide an extra day.
Wow. Oh, we did another story. I was on a
let's
on a
tell
rock
stories.
video. I was on a music video once. It was great. We crew was falling apart after like 20 hours. Producer came on set with a suitcase full of money. Oh, okay, we'll go on. I don't know how long we worked, but it was a good old 30 odd hours. I think it was something like that. I don't know.
All right, well, hey, it has been an amazing, how many days have you guys been in town now? You got to town Wednesday,
17.
right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we've had you here for a long time. I think I can speak for myself and Andrew and Texas Theater and everyone here that we appreciate you not just being here this evening, but for all week that you've been here and all the things that you've done with, talking to the students at SMU and women in film and then the podcast that you've done with us and this evening. It's all been amazing, and we're very, very grateful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.